When Germany lost the First World War in 1918, the League of Nations imposed multiple penalties on the countries to ensure they would never attempt a similar feat. Reparations of $43 billion would be paid to the nations in which Germany attacked during the conflict. 65,000 miles of land was seized and redistributed to neighboring countries. Their army was ordered to be reduced to only 100,000 men. The country as a whole struggled for years, ironically enough, until the stock market collapsed in 1929. A new leader emerged promising massive change and restructure. Adolf Hitler came to power in 1932, and the new Nazi Party regained all that had been taken from Germany at the end of World War I. He took back the Rhineland, Sudetenland, and invaded Czechoslovakia with zero resistance. The military grew substantially with every year that passed under his command, yet the League of Nations failed to act and penalize the Nazi leader for any of these acts of defiance. Hitler then signed a non-aggression pact with Joseph Stalin in August 1939. It stated that should either nation enter into international conflict, they would not ally with the opposition. It paved the way for the start of World War II via German invasion of Poland in September of the same year. France would fall shortly after as the Nazis set their sights on Britain and the rest of Europe. The non-aggression pact would protect Germany's northern borders from Soviet attack, allowing them to concentrate the bulk of their army on expanding into countries along their southern front. Germany broke the treaty in 1941, stirring a Soviet retaliation that would fuel killing methods to reach an all-time level of brutality. One Russian soldier specifically would become infamous for his methods, Vladimir Burskov. Originally an artist, Burskov made it his sole purpose to extract information from prisoners via means of torture. Captured soldiers would be gathered into one of Russia's nicest theaters to bear witness to the horrors that would be endured by those who refused to talk. When the Allies claimed victory in 1945, survivors of the German army would recount one specific method that shook them to their core: the Wahnnsin.
Ich kann meine Hand auf den heiligsten Texten und Objekten legen und ohne Zurückhaltung erklären, der Teufel existiert, indem man, der die Konstruktion des Wahnsinns entworfen hat, kein menschliches Gehirn könnte etwas so Heimtückisches erdenken. Was ist der Wahnsinn? Was haben Sie getan? Entschuldigen Sie mich.
I am delighted to be here, and I'm particularly delighted to be here on this occasion. We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength. And we stand in need of all three. For we meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. All great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulties, and both must be enterprised and overcome with ample courage. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men. We set sail on this new sea, because there is new knowledge to be gained.
My name is Caitlin Denninger. I was born in Newmarket, Ontario. Newmarket is kind of border into the boonies and cottage country. Growing up going downtown Toronto was like a field trip. I only went once or twice, but it was like a different planet. I love the city vibe, which is why I chose to go to TMU in 2021 for neuroscience.
Neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, from structure to function, development to decision, in health and in disease. It covers the whole nervous system with a primary focus on the brain. It is an interdisciplinary science that works closely with other disciplines such as mathematics, linguistics, engineering, computer science, chemistry, philosophy, psychology, and medicine. Neuroscientists study the cellular, functional, behavioral, evolutionary, computational, molecular, and medical aspects of the nervous system. There are various fields that focus on different aspects, but they often overlap. Researchers might look into brain activity in patients with ailments such as Alzheimer's. Tools used include MRI scans and computerized 3D models, and they may do experiments using cells and tissue samples. These findings may lead to the development of new medications, and some neuroscientists are involved in the treatment of patients.
So when I was 12, my best friend in the whole world, Jasmine, she got in a car accident and she was confined to a wheelchair. She had paralysis from the waist down. And she's been getting better. She can take steps now, free of assistance, just feeling back in her feet. Growing up, I saw the team of people who helped her, and I thought, I want to be one of those people who makes her able to walk full-time by herself. Madison was my roommate in first year. She graduated with like a 97 GPA. I don't even want to tell you what mine was. I was waitlisted. Literally got in like a week before classes started. Had to haul ass, get all my shit down to Toronto. And then I walk into the dorm. I met her. She had all her stuff set up perfectly. Already head in the books. I know her focus was unlike any other. She's always studying, always learning. But she also helped you. I think she could tell that I was kind of in the deep end, and she would make a point of making sure that I was where she was with the course. And most people go to school to party, but she was actually there to study. What a thought, right? Studying.
Caitlin Masson did several classes with me, each unique in their own right. Masson was a straight A student. Her mind was like a sponge. She just got it, everything, right away. Caitlin was much more inquisitive. I never had a student ask so many questions or pose so many theories before.
Madison's parents divorced when she was young, so she jumped back and forth between Mississauga and Thornhill. Both are like Diet Toronto. They're more suburby with less like corporate atmosphere, but just like squished. You could fit probably 3 Thornhill houses in one Newmarket house. So neuroscience is like a lot of labs and group work. Everyone kind of knows everyone. So when you do get those off moments, you know like exactly who's gonna be free. So Madison and I hear that there's this party at a pub. So we go, and that's where I met Tom.
I'm gonna find my baby, woo, before that sun goes down.
My name is Thomas Ryan. I'm from Tampa Bay, Florida. I've played competitive baseball since I was like 5. If you've ever played competitive sports, baseball especially, you know that it's an absolute grind. In high school, I was the 7th best player in all of Florida. I committed to Florida State. I even started as a freshman. In the second game of the year, I threw out the fastest runner in the conference going for the plate, but I also threw out my rotator cuff and blew any shot I had of playing pro.
He told me that he was in his third year. He was studying humanities and that he transferred to play baseball.
What position do you play?
Center field.
Who's your favorite baseball player of all time?
Definitely Derek Jeter.
How come?
Well, he's the captain.
Is TMU's baseball team good?
I mean, it's no Florida State.
Then why did you transfer?
Because I heard this is where Burskov was.
So, not because of baseball.
Nope.
Who is Burskov?
The creator of the Wahnnsin.
And what's the Wahnnsin?
The greatest torture method of all time.
So Tom met Tate online in a Reddit community. When he told me about him, he mentioned that the two of them were trying to find this Burskov guy. And when I asked about it, he wouldn't tell me why.
Yeah. Okay. Don't got too many haters on me yet. Yeah, but I got family members. What's the word of mine? They see me dead. They send me curses through the mail. I give a
Picture the weirdest kid you went to high school with. That was Tate. So Tate was this moderator for this subreddit on Burskov, and yeah, that's where it really piqued my interest. I was really into that stuff, and he was an amazing moderator. Just a little bit of a weird guy.
Dead horse.
I really needed a place to stay after I got back from the States.
And how did you pay for it?
That's the beauty. I didn't. I mean, I couldn't really do much. Rent in Canada is fucked, and I was on so many meds that it just wasn't an ideal situation.
And how did he pay for all of this?
That's the thing. I had no idea. I asked him a couple times, and he would always tell me if he told me he'd have to kill me. And to this day, I still have no idea if he's joking or not.
You didn't pay him anything?
Nothing. Not a single dollar. He took care of everything. I was just straight mooching off him. He wasn't sick or crazy. He was a little bit on the weirder side, but at the end of the day, he had good intentions. He just wanted to help people. He was kind of like an introverted extrovert. You know, he was nerdy, he was geeky, but he still loved being the center of attention in the large groups.
Yeah, I know he really cared what people, that people saw that he was important.
In his office, he had like 5 different screens. He told me that he moderated over 300 different forums, all the way from tech equipment to the Burskov stuff.
Were you part of any of the forums?
I was part of a couple, definitely wasn't as active as he was, considering there's some fucking weirdos on there.
So Creepypasta is basically a forum where people could go and write their fictional stories. They are all for user-generated content in the eerie, spooky kind of genre. What is interesting with Creepypasta is it kind of took a world of its own. Basically, these people, instead of just seeing it as something that's fun and kind of a Tales from the Crypt anthology that keeps updating, they started taking it very seriously. They got borderline obsessive. So you'd see people grab tidbits from stories that they've read elsewhere and try to relate it to these very fictional stories. The problem with that is you would have people who would end up looking everywhere. And I'm a journalist. I love when people actually go digging, because that's, you know, that's part of what I do. But they would be digging and they wouldn't have a discerning eye, the way that you can learn from being a proper journalist. They would just believe in everything. So you'd end up having these people who would just share this knowledge, these facts that they think are real, and it would just end up being an echo chamber. They would share it on a subreddit, and then another subreddit, and then another forum, and you'd get all these sources that are really just sourcing back to maybe one fictional story. But because it's everywhere, people start to believe it. Especially that would happen with moderators. You'd get these people absolutely and utterly kind of obsessing about it and believing that these people speak the truth, because as a moderator you have a little bit of clout. You have you're the manager, if you will, of those groups. And so you have people trying to figure out what's fact and what's fiction, and they end up believing the fiction as fact.
Yeah, creepypasta is insane. It's kind of crazy how the internet has made it so easy for people to connect over like the deepest, darkest shit. But the most famous theory is Slender Man, which is this like skinny, pale guy in a suit who either kills or convinces people to kill. So basically there were these two 12-year-old girls who fucking murdered their classmate and claimed, well, hey, this monster named Slender Man told me to do it.
That is a perfect example of a modern urban legend. It started on creepypasta and it just snowballed from there. There's a bunch of different variations of him. Some people say he is like 15 feet tall. Some people are like he's just a regular man. But the general idea is that he is this kind of creepy entity that lives in the woods next to suburban areas and lures children in, either to be kidnapped or to be murdered, or he drives them crazy or something. It changes per story, and people will continue, and they do continue to feed into this story through photoshopped images, or images they say, hey look, I found this on an old hard drive. But it's all just based on this one original story that started on creepypasta that people just kind of bought into.
There's a developing story out of British Columbia. A First Nation says the remains of more than 200 children have been located, buried on the site of a former residential school. In fact, the largest residential school in the entire national network from the time.
They say a survey of the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian residential school site, which you see there on your screen. The survey has uncovered the remains of 215 children buried there. They say this in this media release, telling us that they hired a specialist in ground penetrating radar who carried out this survey of the site. And they say that those missing children were as young as 3 years old, and that to their knowledge these deaths were undocumented up until this point.
It's been years in the making and many months of deliberation among school officials and students. Now, Wahnnsin University finally has a new name, officially cutting ties with its problematic former namesake.
I'm very pleased to share that our Board of Governors has approved a motion to rename our institution Toronto Metropolitan University, effective immediately.
Toronto Metropolitan University. That is the name that made the final cut out of more than 2,600 submissions. A special advisory committee consisting of faculty and students of varying backgrounds whittled down the list to just 3 names, which were then handed over to the institution's president, Mohamed Lashemi.
3 names on that short list. Are you able to reveal what those other names were?
I mean, the discussion now is really about the new name.
Work to physically change the school's name on buildings and online was swift. This afternoon, crews could already be seen removing Ryerson signage from at least one building on campus. The university says only the name will change. The school's colors and recognizable fonts and logos will remain.
Egerton Ryerson was a large portion of founding these indigenous schools called residential schools. We had those in place until 1996. And the mission of those schools was basically to take indigenous children away from their families and reteach them to go into a European society. And so those are very recent. 1996 was not that long ago. We still have people in this generation who have dealt with that. It started to bring into question what Egerton Ryerson actually was as a person and how he conducted himself. So they ended up changing the name from Ryerson to Toronto Metropolitan University. I actually went there for a journalism degree, and I used to walk by his statue all the time. It was on Gould Street. And when all of this came to light, the indigenous community actually came together and tore down that statue and actually beheaded it. Which I smile, not because I'm excited about that, because I got to witness the rewriting of history. I got to witness this whole change in the story of what Ryerson was, from this big idolized person who started the Ontario public school system to basically this man who helped in mass murder of the indigenous community. And as a journalist, I think that was really exciting for me to experience.
Now the statue head of Egerton Ryerson has a new home, 1492 Landback Lane.
You know, like when we're talking about dismantling those monuments to genocide, this is what we're talking about. And when these institutions like Ryerson University refuse to take down or remove these dedications to the killing of the children of our communities, you know, this isn't some far off thing that we remember from 1,000 years ago. This is something that for most of us happened in our lifetimes. Parents like mine that managed to hide in the bush when every time the church bus came rolling around town, you know, that ran, and whose mothers would tell them whenever you see that bus coming down, whenever you see that truck coming, you make sure you get in a bush and go in as far as you can.
Now there's just certain people I have no time for. Like if you're sexist or homophobic, or if you don't believe in conspiracy theories. Just don't understand, how do you not believe in any conspiracy theories? I understand not all of them, not most of them, but you don't believe in any conspiracy theory? You just think the government's just batting 1,000 and telling us the whole truth? That's a strong stance to take. And again, as I said before, I don't like talking about politics on stage or off stage. I don't like talking about things I don't feel like I'm truly knowledgeable in. But I do know this. Our government is placed in charge of all of its people. I'm a father who's been placed in charge of just one son. And I lie to that nigga all the time.
Red light, renegade.
I run a firm that specializes in conspiracy theory cases. Yeah, it's a real thing. We've represented several clients who've committed crimes based on supernatural, government conspiracies. Creepypasta has been used as a defendant in several of those. We work very closely with a variety of mental health experts, as there tends to be very little clemency to anything that our clients are saying in these cases. We need to prove that they are either mentally or physically unsound for a lot of these trials.
Have any of the cases you've handled had any truth to them?
I'd have to plead the fifth on that one.
Conspiracy theories are like historical gossip. It took like 50 years to prove that Lyndon Johnson and the CIA literally killed JFK and kept it a secret all this time.
I know as attorney for Lyndon Johnson that he murdered John Kennedy. He murdered John Kennedy to become president and to avoid prison. I know beyond a reasonable doubt that Johnson murdered Kennedy. He acted through Clark. He saw that it was done, and he did it out of a corruption of power that is unequaled in our history.
As the forces hostile to Kennedy grew in strength and number, they began to think the unthinkable: assassination. Finally, a new imperative forced their hand.
Lyndon Johnson was in big trouble. The Bobby Baker scandal and the Billy Celeste scandal could destroy Lyndon Johnson's career. Lyndon Johnson would go to jail, and he was their man. He represented all these right-wing forces. There was an urgency to kill President Kennedy. They had to save Lyndon Johnson. The governor of Texas, first of all, is Lyndon Johnson's best friend in history. They went back decades together. In the 1948 vote scandal, John Connally was every much a part of that cover-up that took place. He was his campaign manager. It is without question John Connally who entices John F. Kennedy to Texas. Once they get him there, then they're in control of everything. Motorcade routes, the evidence, the Dallas police, everything. It's their land. It's their territory. Lyndon Johnson and his Texas cronies suckered President Kennedy to Texas.
How can we trust anyone when literally the biggest government in the world fucking lied to us all these years?
As technology becomes more and more advanced and trendy, we're finding ourselves becoming bored and lacking exhilaration in our lives. Even if you look at things like special effects for movies or video games, frankly, it's mind-blowing, but we're just becoming so used to it. For the first time in years, we're overwhelmed with content. Our expectations are just getting higher and higher because there's so much content to get through. There's no mystery anymore with a lot of this stuff. Think about when the Titan went down to look for that Titanic. When that implosion happened, we knew within minutes. As soon as we lost contact with it, we had boats out there, we had drones, we had people searching. The 24-hour news cycle had taken over. When the actual Titanic had gone down, people didn't know that there was anything wrong for an entire day. What don't we know because it wasn't documented? Or wasn't documented correctly? Atlantis, the moon landing, giants. Are these a lack of documentation? Or is this that there was some guy who had a flair for early science fiction? The case is, if you can prove a conspiracy theory, you gotta ride that wave.
In music history, there's a musician by the name of Robert Johnson. Now in the 1920s, he started off as a janitor, super fascinated by the guitar. Dude disappears for a few months, comes back, and apparently sounds like the greatest musician anyone's ever heard. Now, the legend says that he must have sold his soul to the devil in exchange for his talent, because there's absolutely no way anyone could get that good that fast.
His name is synonymous with blues. His music made him one of the most iconic figures in his genre. He is cemented as a legend. And yet, very little is known about Robert Johnson. 29 songs, 2 verified photographs, and hundreds of unanswered questions. Johnson's life, his story, and his artistry is wrapped in mystery to this day, but his music resonates with millions. However, Johnson wasn't always a brilliant musician. In fact, he was considered to be relatively untalented, even up until his early 20s. Allegedly, he improved rapidly on the guitar. So much so that a legend was born that Johnson sold his soul to the devil so that he could become a master of the guitar. Johnson passed away under mysterious circumstances at 27 years old, giving birth to the infamous 27 Club and adding yet another question mark onto his already confusing story.
But we don't know that much about him. It was the 1930s and not much was actually written down. And there's only 3 or 4 photos of him left from that time. He has records, and that's basically the only thing that we actually still know about him. But other than that, he has been lost to time. What we do have on him is all really urban legend. Which if people were more discerning, they would have known was not true. But the urban legend for him was saying that he sold his soul. There's a few different ones. Either he sold his soul or he made a deal with the devil in order to be this great blues musician, which he was, but he didn't sell his soul. There's no way that anybody nowadays would hear that and think that that's a true fact. But back then, and because we don't have that much information on him, he seems like a prime candidate to have this type of urban legend attached to his name. So this one's still being discovered. There's actually more photos that are slowly surfacing on him, and I guess it's an ongoing thing to know about.
Legend says he would spend all his time practicing in graveyards. He said he wanted to go where no one could hear him. Now, Robert Johnson is the musician equivalent of Burskov. It's all about if the media gets there before the people have power, right? Think about Germany. There's parts of the country where no one knows that World War II even happened because it's completely erased from the history books. Now, take Burskov, for example. We're talking about a guy who literally never existed because what he did was so bad. The first time I read the Burskov article, I was literally obsessed. I mean, it's only 2 or 3 pages long, but I'm pretty sure that's part of the appeal. It just left me wanting so much more.
Yeah, Tom had sent me the story of Burskov on Creepypasta, and he basically said, hey, look at this guy. He's the most evil, diabolical person, not only of World War II, but like fucking ever.
Pretty much the dude committed atrocities worse than any serial killer, gang member, mob leader that you can ever think of. The stuff was so bad, they literally deleted it from all of human history.
He created the Wahnnsin.
Yep. I transferred to TMU because Tate claimed he had access to Burskov. I figure I could play some ball, I could rehab my arm a little bit, especially because Canada's healthcare system is so fucking dope.
You fully moved your life to Canada to try and find this guy. Doesn't that seem excessive?
No. Do you know how boring the education system is? Guess what my program was? Domestic Social Studies. Literally, it's where people gather and where they meet. It's called The Bar, and I go every weekend. Doesn't matter your gender, race, sexuality, tall, short, skinny, fat, there's definitely a bar for you.
For someone so conservative, Madison was infatuated with finding out more about this guy and like what he was about. There was a night Tom came over to study and he told us all about Burskov. And at first she thought it was bullshit, but then you could see her grow more and more intrigued. Intelligent people are plagued by things that they can't explain.
When I blew up my arm, I was depressed as hell. I went on antidepressants even. I mean, I went from moving all the time, working out, playing, running, stretching, to literally doing nothing. It sucked.
So you move in with a random guy you meet on a forum about an urban legend?
Pretty much. To be fair, I wasn't exactly coherent at the time. Like I mentioned, I was on a few antidepressants, and I started to dabble a little bit with the marijuana. A little bit more than dabble.
So you show up to Canada, then what happened?
Well, Tate, we found this guy that said he had access to Burskov, and we hit him up.
Tom convinced us to go with them for the meeting, so we all took the subway up to Vaughan. And this was all in October, so there was like extra creepy element to it.
He wanted us to meet him in some fancy restaurant in North Toronto. He claimed to be Burskov's caretaker the last 10, 15 years. Guy was super stoic when we talked to him.
And what did he say to you?
He wanted us to redo the Burskov experiment.
What type of experiment?
He wouldn't tell us. He said we had to earn his trust.
How did you earn it?
He wanted us to steal something from the university.
Every university has a mini museum of sorts, not one that's made open to the public. If you take certain courses that require the study of something in the university's possession, then they will give you access. So yeah, this could be like artifacts from major historical events, or outfits people wore, or even body parts of like famous people.
McMaster has pieces of Einstein's brain, Texas has pieces from the moon landing. Literally, I guarantee you, wherever you went to school, there's a secret room somewhere with some crazy historical shit.
He said that the original Human Rights Commission report and charges made against Burskov were in a locked room in Toronto. Basically that like the meat and potatoes of this guy's crimes against humanity we're just chilling there.
Why you?
Well, one, we're students, and two, we're girl students. So yeah, no one kind of gives a fuck what we do as long as we show an intent to learn.
They offered us 50 grand each. They even made us sign NDAs. I mean, these guys were not fucking around. Now, I knew we'd have an easier time getting in if we brought the girls, so I brought along Caitlin, I brought along Madison, made sure to pick the ugliest of the 3 security guards, and we didn't have a problem.
Both of us submitted for access to the lab and requested a time when we knew this guy was working.
It turns out no one had requested the documents in 2 decades.
Tate's favorite author was Alan Moore, so he printed like 80 or 90 copies of The Killing Joke, designed some crap cover so that it would look legit enough should anyone like pass a glance at it.
All things considered, the plan went perfectly, except for the discovery of the tapes.
There were 6 VHS tapes. Obviously, we didn't know they'd be there. We would have got them the first time. We had to make a second trip to swap those, and where they were, we put a bunch of workout tapes. Then we had to track down a workable TV and player.
You watched them?
Well, there was nothing in the contract about not being able to.
Зачем мне рассказывать вам что-то о себе? Вы все исказите и выставите меня чудовищем. Достаточно одного обвинения, одного человека, который укажет пальцем на неправильный поступок, и всю оставшуюся жизнь на меня будут смотреть как на ненормального. Где мой справедливый суд? Где мой шанс покаяться? Я не дам вам возможности очернить мое имя еще больше, чем вы это уже сделали. Почему я здесь? Потому что солдаты оппозиции сказали вам, что я совершил это злодеяние. Мы все лжем, особенно во времена принуждения, чтобы не чувствовать боли от преследований, чтобы не подвергаться остракизму со стороны общества, которое утверждает, что мы все равны, но затем ведет мировые войны, чтобы доказать свое индивидуальное превосходство. В самые мрачные времена мы идем на самые изощренные поступки, пытаясь избавиться от этих чувств. Никто из нас не безгрешен. Вопрос в том, простите ли вы себя после этого и позволите ли миру заставить вас чувствовать вину за это. Человек, который рассказал вам о моих предполагаемых проступках, это тот самый человек, которого ваша страна призвала на военную службу и заставила убивать невинных людей. Вам не кажется, что его мозг и восприятие хотя бы немного искажены?
Phil Dunphy told us we needed to find someone in hospice to volunteer to be experimented on.
He wanted us to recreate the original Wahnnsin, which as far as I know, had 0 survivors.
We had no idea what that meant. The four of us, I mean, I'd say we're pretty fucking smart, but we're researching like crazy, and we can't find anything. I mean, every time, all it said was torture method from World War II.
After everything was revealed, we realized a huge glaring difference between our experiment and Burskov's. Ours were volunteers. His were victims, right? So one was just an experiment, the other was torture. I mean, you could see how there might be some differences in the results.
So the offer we gave was $500,000 to the family of whoever was going to be experimented on, which implied that they were probably going to die. Yeah, we needed someone in hospice who was terminally ill, but because we were trying to replicate this experiment as much as possible from when it was first done, we wanted a male, and we wanted someone who was healthy enough to not interfere with the results.
We left it to Tate to bring in the candidates.
I have 6 months to live. With the treatment, if it responds well, chemotherapy and radiation therapy, at best, I can live 5 years if the other cancers don't get to me. I'm a single mom. Her father's not present in her life. And Jenna is everything.
I've been diagnosed with a rare terminal illness called progressive cellular degeneration. It's been devastating. I feel like I'm losing a part of myself every day.
I'm 37 years old, and I've been diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. I'm leaving behind my wife, my pregnant wife. The doctors gave me 5 months. My daughter's gonna be born in 4.
I'm 29 years old, and I've been recently diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, which I never thought this would happen to me, because I really don't want to go. I'm really scared, but this is out of my control, so I guess that is what it is. I'm gonna be leaving behind a lovely wife and our amazing 2-year-old daughter.
The hardest part was maintaining discretion. I mean, if absolutely anyone found out what we were doing, then we wouldn't be able to get answers. And not to mention that we were doing something that literally the entire world had agreed to never ever do again.
So now this is not only like federal level, but it's all nations could prosecute us. Because think about it. It's a Czech citizen committing a crime on a French victim in Canadian territory.
So how are you not in prison right now?
This was by far the strangest case I've ever been a part of. The Burskov case originally set precedent for sanctions on international law. We're talking human rights, terrorism, murder, criminal intent. The crime itself was so heinous that the punishment for its recreation was enforced globally. If you go country by country, they obviously all have different laws and regulations. Canada has a pretty lenient criminal code. There's a non-zero chance that you could spend less than a decade or two in prison for a serious crime like murder. As of 2022, there are still 55 nations that practice the death penalty. Originally, Burskov was sentenced to death.
In the room, there was Pavel, the security guard, his assistant Alex, Caitlin, Madison, Tate, and me.
Heart monitor, IV drip, adrenaline drip, saw, multiple scalpels, hand wash station.
Where was Burskov?
I don't know.
He wasn't there?
No.
Have you ever met him?
No.
Are you sure he's even alive?
I don't know. I mean, after we came to our senses, Pavel, the security guard, they were gone.
Ich kämpfte in Stalingrad. Ich war in einer der ersten Bataillons, die in einer Attacke auf eine der kleineren Angriffspunkte im südlichen Stoß geschickt wurden. Sie wussten nicht mal, dass wir kommen, aber sie haben uns trotzdem zerstört. Des Russens Lebenswert war keineswegs nahe des unseren. Es kümmerte sie nicht, ob sie sterben. Uns kümmerte es. Das wirkte gegen uns. Ich war Kriegsgefangener mit 15 anderen Männern von 1942 bis 1945. Die Sowjets waren brutal, aber nicht dumm. Sie hätten uns auf der Stelle abmetzeln können, aber stattdessen brachte man uns ins Lager und schickte uns in die Grube. Man ließ uns tagelang hungern, ohne Schutz vor Sonne und Regen. Und schließlich brachte man uns Untergrund. Ich erinnere mich, wir gingen in was wie ein kleines Theater schien. Im Zentrum einer kleinen Bühne stand eine tragbare und ein Haufen Medikamente. Ein Mitglied unserer Einheit wurde auf die Bühne gebracht und ans Bett gebunden. Dann erschien ein junger Mann, der sich als Burskov vorstellte. Er hatte ein Knabengesicht, wie ein Kind. Er sagte, dies sei unsere Gelegenheit, einen Traum oder Albtraum zu erleben. Beantworten wir seine Fragen, würden wir in die luxuriöseste Gegend Moskaus gebracht und wie die erste Sahne bewirtschaftet, alle unsere Wünsche erfüllt. Aber wenn nicht, würden wir die ultimative Vernichtung erleben. Er begann klein. Wie ist dein Name? Bist du verheiratet? Dann kamen größere Fragen. Haben die Deutschen den Pakt verraten? Letztendlich wurde er aufgefordert, des Führers Standort zu offenbaren. Er weigerte sich. Dann begannen die Chirurgen an seiner Stirn zu schneiden. Ganz rum. Dann kam die Säge, um den Schädel zu entfernen. Alles ohne Narkose. Ein Schlauch pumpte Adrenalin in seinen linken Arm, um sicherzustellen, dass er nicht in Ohnmacht fällt. Als der Schädel entfernt war, erklärte er uns den Plan. Dem Gehirn Zugang zu den 5 Sinnen zu unterbinden. Eins nach dem anderen. Bis nichts mehr da ist, es zu stimulieren. Man würde leben, ohne Möglichkeit der Kommunikation oder Verbindung mit der Außenwelt.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I do now.
Why now?
Well, I mean, the experiment proved it to me.
How so?
Well, after the last snip, the body's mouth began to move.
His mouth should not have been able to move. I mean, I had never met, I'd never seen that man before in my life. And I mean, like the shit he was saying to me, I haven't told my parents. I haven't told my best friend. I mean, you know, nobody knows those things.
I felt like I was being interrogated by a cop. I mean, all the worst shame, fear, anxiety, paranoia I've ever felt just came back up in the worst way.
And you think it was paranormal?
It had to be. I mean, I saw the lips moving.
It would make sense. Nobody knows the capabilities of any brain when it's had the senses removed. And the reason why that scenario is not tangible is literally because it is the most horrifying, awful thing that you could possibly do to a fully functioning body.
Do you think the Wahnnsin was proof of a ghost communicating with the living?
Wahnnsin. Sends chills down your spine, doesn't it? Short answer, yes. Very much so. Population of the majority of the population will tell you that ghosts don't exist. Hubbub, baloney, mumbo jumbo. People a couple hundred years ago didn't think the Earth revolved around the sun. There are people still that don't believe in dinosaurs. I think the Wahnnsin was groundbreaking. It had some kind of effect on the human body that allowed a paranormal spirit or entity to enter that body and communicate as a vessel. I think they knew it. I think they knew it. What was discussed in the Treaty of San Francisco at the end of the war, 49 countries signed it. Did 49 countries know about the Wahnnsin? My answer is yes.
What happened to Tate?
Depends on who you ask.
He had a cardiac episode. I mean, you could call it a heart attack, but, you know, that kind of shit doesn't happen to people our age, so.
The guy would drink 3 Cokes a day. His heart was fine.
So what do you think happened?
All 4 of us went back to Tate's. We wanted to go to the hospital, but we signed a form saying we weren't able to seek medical treatment 2 years after the surgery. I put together a book to help deal with the PTSD and anxiety we were all facing. Tom, Caitlin, and I, we were messed up, but we were coping. Tate was gone. He kept crying uncontrollably, kept saying, "I'm so sorry," over and over and over again. He wouldn't eat or stop shaking. I had no idea what to do. I called the health lines and they all told me to seek medical attention immediately. It was what we saw, not the actual torture, but what happened once we did it.
After the final incision, the room went silent. All you could hear was the heart monitor going faster and faster.
Then everything went black and I woke up 3 hours later.
Did you all wake up at the same time?
No, I had to shake Tate awake. He couldn't stay awake. If he did, he would go smoke weed and then go back to sleep.
It was ironic, because now I was the one taking care of him.
One night he had a breakthrough. It was back to normal Tate. We were all so relieved. We went out, had dinner. When we came back, we sat on the couch and watched movies. He said he wasn't feeling well, so he went to bed. He was violently puking all night, to the point where all he had left was dry heaves. I'd finally cracked and called the ambulance. The paramedics came, took him to the hospital. They said his body was in distress, he wouldn't eat, and within 24 hours he was dead.
I knew him 2 years. He never once talked about or even mentioned his family.
Only one person came to the funeral. We did.
We were the 2 who longest stayed at the Pierces. He was even longer than me. Everyone thought he was weird, but he never did anything that was weird. You know, he just went to work, came home, sat on his computer the rest of the night, but he didn't have much of a social life. You know, and whenever I tried talking to him, it was always one-word answers, or if anything at all. And so I kind of just left him alone because, you know, the quiet ones usually have trauma. And the thing is, you can explain the foster care system to people, but a lot of the time, unless they've actually been there and seen it too, they don't get it. But Tate, no, he got it.
The four of us each said something, and that was it.
Who paid for it?
Madison's parents.
How come you had to organize Tate's funeral?
Because no one else did. We waited for weeks. Nothing.
We went to City Hall to look up his family. He was born in Welland, and Child Services in St. Catharines picked him up when he was 4. He lived in David Pierce foster home until he was 16. And then he lived alone in Toronto until he died.
When I look back at all those videos that people took, that's not the Tate I knew. He said maybe less than 20 words to me my entire life. He says more than that in one video with Tom. Something changed in him when he'd aged out of the system.
One of the last things he said to me was, "No one will come to my funeral." He was half right.
I really do think that the 3 of us brought out the best in him. Mostly Tom. You know, I don't think Tate had ever had someone like that, you know, like a good male friend who, you know, someone who really supported him in his life. You know, that was good, but it was also a bad thing.
We realized after that Tate had been the one who planned and executed the idea to recreate the Wahnnsin. He lived pretty silently until Tate reached out to Pavel. I mean, Burskov agreed to fund everything so long as everything was cleared out of TMU. All the documents, all the tapes. So long as Tate destroyed everything, it was cool. Tate brought me in, I brought the girls in, and the rest is history.
So he manipulated all of you?
Well, I don't think he did, but others are not as agreeable on that sentiment.
Yeah. I used to get like really bad anxiety, and you know, my therapist, she asked me this question once. She was like, "What do you think it's trying to accomplish?" And she basically told me that it's, you know, it's protecting you, right? It's trying to keep you away from things that could cause you harm. You know, I mean, we're all wired to run when there's something stressful, because fucking a few thousand years ago that would have killed us if we didn't. That's how we are, and realizing that, I mean, you know, perspective is everything. Yeah, no, when I realized that, it like fucked me up, but like in a fun way.
There's still a lot to be sorted. It's hard to decipher which emotions were real and which were not.
I'm mentally in a better place than I've ever been. Yeah, it's definitely taken some work, but everything happens for a reason.
I think we've just witnessed where the mind goes when it's completely alone and not distracted by a social life, which is insanely creepy, ironic, and poetic when you realize what the Wahnnsin actually is. An idle mind is the devil's playground.
There's a study that suggests that there does exist a frequency that can stimulate a section of your brain responsible for logic. Grounding that directly connects you to reality. Was it a ghost or a supernatural entity? Or was this the first time we ever witnessed the brain's reaction to being completely independent of stimulation? And the only 2 times we have documentation of this occurring, we have an overwhelming ringing sensation, then, possible hallucinations of people in the vicinity. I mean, the time frame suggests that they were present with the body 10 to 15 minutes before it had a cardiac event and died. My theory is humans are mammals, meaning at our core, we rely on each other and help each other to survive. I mean, between the adrenaline and lack of any sense, the brain emitted a wave causing people in the vicinity to sense something was really wrong and that they needed to self-destruct. I mean, in turn, their greatest fears and memories came out in full force, trying to convince them to kill themselves. And it worked on Tate.
Do you think Tate was haunted by a ghost?
I don't think ghosts can possess people, period. Communicate, yes. Possess, no. People blame ghosts all the time. If you do something stupid, like people do, I must have been possessed.
I think people get haunted more by past versions of themselves than they do by the paranormal.
Death is said to be one of the greatest fears of most people. I would argue that humiliation surpasses that. Being alive knowing that people are not only talking about you, but in a negative context. In speaking with the witnesses, all of them conveyed to me how they became lost in the what-if scenario, like all things that occurred to someone else in their past. One was afraid they were going to jail, another afraid that they were being sued, one about being kicked out of school, and another about being seen as a pedophile and a rapist. This completely reshaped their logic. It gave them chronic delusional anxiety. Something in that room triggered them, which is baffling because none of them were being operated on. They were just watching.
Tom and the girls did nothing wrong. The document against Burskov states that the Wahnnsin would be brought to trial in 2012, 70 years after the original experiment. The United Nations didn't even stage a vote for the punishment for the recreation. Everybody that was involved in the original is already dead. And keep in mind, they didn't recreate anything. They just witnessed it.
We won our freedom because we claimed that Tate had brainwashed us. It took me a couple years to get back on my feet. In death, it's difficult to see or picture someone in their final moments, especially if they're sick or struggling or suffering. But it's imperative to understand that although those moments were highly emotional, they don't replace the person that you once loved and cared about so much.
That is spicy. How the fuck can I do that voice? That is spicy. Since when can I do that?
If Tate hadn't have died, he'd have been in some pretty hot water. Based on the mental episodes that were described, it seemed that guilt was a pretty big catalyst in the anxiety getting to an extreme level. I think this is why he spiraled.
Вам нечем убедить меня сотрудничать с вами. Вы думаете, что можете запугать меня? Что вы можете отнять у меня то, что я люблю больше всего? Это у меня уже отняли. Я умер много лет назад. И хотя мое сердце все еще бьется, моя душа покинула меня. Я могу избавиться от своей физической формы, если захочу. Я могу заморить себя голодом. Я могу биться головой о стену, пока не рухну. Но нет. Я предпочитаю носить цепи, потому что пока я их ношу, вы не обретете покоя. Вы знаете, что у меня есть ответы, и пока я жив, вы верите, что есть шанс перехитрить меня, и я должен раскрыть их. Наблюдать, как большое эго разрушает само себя, это большее удовольствие, чем любое другое, которое может предложить эта земля. Вы проиграете, и я буду смеяться, когда стану свидетелем этого.
What don't we know because it wasn't documented? Or wasn't documented correctly? Atlantis, the moon landing, giants. Are these a lack of documentation? Or is this that there was some guy who had a flair for early science fiction?
So the history that we have now is not necessarily the actual history of what happened. It's only what we've learned and what has been told to us through people's biases, through people's propaganda, or through just not having all of the information. It's been manipulated, but whether that's been purposeful or not knowing that it has been manipulated, but it's a variation of you never actually know, and especially in a historical context, sometimes you never will know.
In primary school, we used to play a game called telephone. The class would get in a circle and whisper a sentence into their neighbor's ear. They had to try and make the same sentence go all the way around the circle, whispering from one person to the next, until it came all the way back around to the first person who made up that sentence. We would never be able to make it all the way around. The sentence would always change. Not everyone in that circle has the same objective. I mean, they're told to, but they don't. Now imagine how many generations of humans have probably modified stories due to shock, self-gratification, arrogance. I mean, the stories of any event, and not just war, are told differently all around the world purely based on so many different factors, like education, economy, climate, resources, etc.
Hypothetically, if we were allowed to legally recreate the Wahnnsin now, would you?
Who's watching this?
What would you ask a ghost if you could?
Go back. Go back. Who's watching this movie? Government? No, I would not recreate that. People that believe in what I believe? Fucking A. I would. 3-4 times. Bring it on.
She found something I can't force. What she don't know is a release flow. Whether you stand for or talk because you don't know. Over time you start to reprocess those goals. It's fine if you find that I'll be on your eyes. This is a simple I
can do one more
You
take.
sounded awesome!
Thank
Wait,
you.
wait, Tim, on the head, one sec.
Yeah, it's too bad you guys can't hear anything.
It was cool. When you did make noise, it was like, what? Okay.
I'm gonna start recording then.